Dancehall has always rewarded the bold. It's a genre built on competition, on proving yourself in front of a live crowd that will turn on you the second you give them a reason to. And in that world, the highest stakes proving ground has always been Sting, the annual Boxing Day festival in Portmore, Jamaica, where careers are made and destroyed in real time. At Sting 2000, one man walked onto that stage and did something that had never been done before and hasn't been done since. He took on three of the biggest names in dancehall simultaneously and won. That man was Merciless. Leonard Bartley was born on July 1st, 1971, in the Turner district of Chapelton in the Clarendon parish of Jamaica. Clarendon isn't Kingston. It doesn't carry the same cultural weight in dancehall mythology, and it doesn't have Kingston's infrastructure of sound systems, producers, and industry connections. Coming up from Clarendon meant you had to find your way in from the outside, which is exactly what Bartley did. He first found success performing with sound systems, the grassroots circuit where Jamaican DJs have always built their reputations before anything else. You don't get a record deal first in this world. You earn it by moving crowds in real rooms. And Bartley was doing that before most people outside of Clarendon had any idea who he was. The name change came early and came fast. When Stone Love boss Winston Wee Pow Powell heard him DJ for the first time, he immediately declared him a star and changed his moniker from Sugar Demos to Merciless. That's not a small thing. Stone Love was one of the most respected sound systems in Jamaica, and Wee Pow's cosign carried real weight in the scene. Merciless exploded onto the dancehall scene in 1994 at the House of Leo nightclub in Kingston, propelled by Stone Love from a virtual unknown to one of dancehall's most revered sons in a single night, via his debut hit, Len Out Me Mercy. One night, one song, that's how fast it happened. He followed that up with fan favorites like Gal Dem Gazeta, Mama Cooking, Ol Gallus, and the Dave Kelly-produced Let Them Have It. But the song that really announced him to the broader world was Mavis in 1995, and its reach was immediate and unexpected. Mavis became the top reggae single in Jamaica in 1995 and rode the same rhythm as Shaggy's Mr. Boombastic. At Notting Hill Carnival, Busta Rhymes introduced Merciless on stage, and the crowd's response to Mavis, a million people singing back every word, was later described by his manager as the biggest forward of his entire career. 1 million people in London, England, cheering a DJ from Chapelton, Clarendon. That is the power of a real song on a hot rhythm at exactly the right moment. By the mid-1990s, Merciless was a legitimate star, but the thing that would define him, and ultimately complicate everything, was already taking shape. He was a clash artist, not just someone who could hold his own in a lyrical battle, but someone who lived for them, who was built for them, and whose voice was almost supernaturally suited to the confrontational energy that clash culture demands. And that's where Bounty Killer enters the story. The issues between Merciless and Bounty Killer date back to the mid-1990s, when Merciless debuted with a sound and vocal style very similar to Killer's. In dancehall, that kind of similarity gets noticed immediately, and not always charitably. Initially, Merciless hailed Bounty as someone he looked up to, and the two even performed together, but the goodwill curdled. Allegations began circulating that Merciless had stolen Bounty's melodies, and things really escalated when Merciless recorded Mr. Houdini, which Bounty took as a direct subliminal diss aimed at him. From that point forward, the lyrical war was running. The rivalry reached what should have been its peak at Sting 1997, when it was thought Bounty and Merciless would finally clash on that stage. Bounty was cordoned off by police and show organizers who said they weren't paid for a clash. By the time he reached the stage, Merciless was already gone, and the anticipated showdown ended without resolution, which only kept the tension alive heading into the years that followed. A peace of sorts was restored in 1998, with the two having a friendly lyrical exchange at Merciless' birthday party. Bounty himself later said that after Sting 1997, he took Merciless under his wing, mentored him, and brought him to his birthday celebration in 1999, where Merciless reportedly called him his father. That detail matters more than it might seem, because it makes what happened next at Sting 2000 feel like something much more loaded than a simple clash between rivals. Sting 2000 is the night that Merciless became legend. Clad in full military combat gear, Merciless took the stage and proceeded to brush aside ninja men, then ordered the promoter to summon Bounty Killer, whom he demolished, before turning and taking on Beanie Man, improvising his way through all three as the crowd went absolutely wild. Three of the biggest names in Jamaican dancehall, and he took them all on at once. Bounty later admitted to the Star tabloid that Sting 2000 was the most embarrassing clash of his career, and also blamed Beanie Man for making things worse. Because just as the battle between Merciless and Ninja Men was heating up, Beanie jumped in and turned a manageable situation into a 3-on-1 that Merciless proceeded to win anyway. Years later, Bounty said he had to go and rub out Merciless at a subsequent show because Merciless was going around telling everyone he'd slaughtered 3 dancehall giants at once, which, to be fair, is exactly what happened. The mural that was painted onto the wall at Merciless' burial site depicted that exact moment. The Sting 2000 clash against Bounty, Beanie, and Ninja Men. That tells you everything about how his legacy was understood, even by the people who loved him. That night in Portmore was the defining event of his career and his life, painted literally onto his grave. Bounty got a measure of revenge at Sting 2001, where he got the upper hand on Merciless in another clash that also involved Ninja Man. The two clashed many more times over the following years and intermittently for the rest of the decade. But the dynamic had fundamentally shifted. Even when Bounty won exchanges, the reputation Merciless had built in 2000 was too solid to erase. It followed him everywhere, which turned out to be both the best and worst thing that could have happened to his career. Bounty, in a moment of genuine candor before Merciless died, said, "Merciless have a voice. His pitch, his range, when it comes to vocal, the only man I think could threaten Killer with vocal was Merciless." Coming from Bounty Killer, one of the most competitive and unsparing figures in dancehall history, that is about as high a compliment as exists. And it makes the trajectory of Merciless' career after 2000 all the more painful to sit with. Because after Sting 2000, the commercial momentum didn't come. The albums didn't materialize. He recorded only 3 studio albums between 1994 and 1997, Mr. Merciless, Len Out Me Mercy, and Mama's Cooking, and none came after that, despite years of promises and announcements. Bounty himself said it plainly in interviews. That's what got to his head, too much attention, and he didn't know how to capitalize on it. Fans and commentators pointed to the same thing. Merciless was typecast as purely a clash artist after Sting 2000 and couldn't find a way to convert that notoriety into a mainstream music career. Being the best at clashing is an extraordinary thing in dancehall. It just doesn't pay the same bills as hit records. Merciless himself linked some of his decline to being blacklisted by producers and selectors in the industry, a consequence, he believed, of the comparisons to Bounty that had followed him since the beginning and the enemies he'd made along the way. His manager later said that career stagnation appeared to be the silent killer that had been waiting for him, a slow erosion of momentum in a genre that moves fast and has little patience for artists who aren't consistently releasing. In the late 2000s, he served 14 months in prison in Florida and wrote about the experience in a song called The Letter, which also addressed the damage it did to his relationship with his mother. That song, more than almost anything else in his catalog, showed the depth of what he was capable of when the personal and the musical collided. It wasn't a Clash record, it was a confession. And it reminded anyone paying attention that underneath the warhead persona was a man who could write with real emotional weight when he chose to. He made a surprise appearance at Sting 2008 after his release, to the delight of fans, but the sustained comeback never came. The years continued to pass. The albums he announced kept not arriving. And through all of it, the Sting 2000 footage kept circulating, a permanent reminder of the night he was untouchable, which made the distance between that peak and where he found himself feel wider with every passing year. On July 19th, 2022, 18 days after his 51st birthday, Leonard Bartley was found dead in his room at the Harlem Resort Hotel in St. Andrew, Kingston, where he usually stayed when he was in the city. No foul play was suspected. He was reportedly working on new music at the time, a dancehall album, a mixtape, a gospel project, and had gigs lined up and plans in motion. He was, by all accounts, still fighting. Tributes poured in immediately. Gramps Morgan called it a big loss for dancehall. Tanya Stephens paid her respects publicly. And then, in a moment that said more about the lingering weight of Sting 2000 than almost anything else could, Bounty Killer explained that he did not attend Merciless's funeral because the event felt less like a celebration of Leonard Bartley's life and more like a continued victory lap over the 2000 clash, a wound that had apparently never fully closed, even after more than 2 decades. Merciless' last Instagram post, made on June 12, 2022, just weeks before his death, was a birthday greeting to Bounty Killer, 2 men whose relationship had been rivalry, mentorship, betrayal, mutual respect, and unresolved tension all at once. Right up to the end, what Merciless left behind is complicated to assess. By the conventional metrics of albums released and mainstream crossover achieved, his output was limited. But in the specific and demanding tradition of clash culture, the tradition that sits at the very heart of what dancehall is and where it came from, he produced one of the most extraordinary moments the genre has ever seen. Sting promoter Isaiah Lying has called the 2000 clash the most iconic in the festival's history. The mural on his grave was of that night. The story people tell when they talk about him begins and ends with that night. That's a legacy. Not the one he wanted, maybe not the one he deserved, but a real one. The kind that doesn't diminish with time and doesn't depend on streaming numbers or chart positions. The warhead from Clarendon walked into the most unforgiving arena in Jamaican music and took down 3 legends at once. Dancehall remembers exactly who did that.